I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Bobby Lugosi and my buddy Patrick McCray, author of the Dark Shadows Daybook and Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound. We're here to discuss Night of Dark Shadows, starring David Selby, Kate Jackson, who's playing Tracy, John Carlin's in this thing. Yeah, John Carlin's in this thing. Nancy Barrett's in this thing. Grayson Hall is in this. Laura Parker is in this. James Storm is in this. Christopher Pennock. Dana
Clarice Blackburn.
Clarice Blackburn. Yeah. There's a lot of Dark Shadows cast members in this one too, thank God. Oh, Thayer David's in this as well. He gets trampled to death by a horse. His character does anyway.
But that's hardly his last appearance in the film.
Right. I know. That's the fun part about it. I really want to focus on the house because it's as much a main character in this movie as the characters themselves. So, Bobby, what did you think of Night of Dark Shadows and how the Lyndhurst estate is a character in a sense in this movie?
Yeah, definitely. Night of Dark Shadows, it goes like House of Dark Shadows is so fast and has so much action going on. This Night of Dark Shadows has like more atmosphere. It like gives the house like you have a chance to kind of check it all out.
Yeah,
like the different rooms, the tower room, and then on the other places on the estate, like the pool room, the greenhouse. So it really feels like you're there.
Yeah, it does. Patrick, what do you think, man?
You picked, Jewel, I gotta tell you picked maybe the single best and most unorthodox thing to focus on with this movie. And I really champion you for this. So that's, first of all, kudos to you for not only focusing on this film, but focusing on the house. Which is ironic because House of Dark Shadows has to take place largely at night.
Yeah.
And Night of Dark Shadows is all about the house.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the movie that you write and direct when you're hanging around on the set for long periods of time, waiting for the director of photography to set everything up. And you start saying, Sam, if we had really been this intimate with the house before we wrote House of Dark Shadows, we would have written it totally differently to include this. But do you know they've got this over here and that over there? And, I've got all my shots planned out, so this doesn't work out. But imagine if we did this and we did that. That, to me, this movie is a testament to the boredom of shooting any regular movie.
Yeah.
If you're not the lighting person or the cinematographer, in which case it's just sheer terror, trying to make this thing work. But for everybody else, you just kind of sit around and what a wonderful bit of self Monday morning quarterbacking. I mean, I almost wish that we could do a third movie where we digitally remove the actors and then we digitally superimpose the actors from House of Dark Shadows just on cooler locations within Lyndhurst and from wackier angles and all of that. The house is a real star. It is austere. It is it's made to feel, really grand. I think they use the Jenkins cottage extremely well in this as a counterpoint. Yeah. I think in Dark Shadows TV series, you have Vicki Winters as the audience surrogate. She's the eyes through whom we see Dark Shadows. In the Dark Shadows movie, Barnabas Goes to Collinwood or whatever. House of Dark Shadows. A better title. House of Dark Shadows. There is no surrogate.
Right.
Maybe because we don't need one. Maggie has been on staff for a while. And, and Barnabas is kind of the fish out of water, but it's his house, sort of. So, So you don't need that, but I think it's really important. And so in House of Dark Shadows, it's all audience surrogate. Everyone is in the position that the audience is in the movie, which is they're often seated, but also they're in the position in the movie of this all being new to them. And so there is no, like, didn't Roger and Liz ever like get creeped out living in this place and want to move to a condo in Bangor or something like that? No, there's none of that. There's just weird Carlotta. Now, I got to ask, and it may be covered somewhere in the movie, where is Carlotta during the events of House of Dark Shadows?
It's not necessarily covered. Carletta does many weird mentions here about Mrs. Stoddard, actually. That Miss Stoddard liked to have her tea in a certain room, and they actually end up having tea in that room in the movie. I think, honestly, Carletta was
It's a barn burner. It's an exciting film. It's a barn burner. Anyway.
I do think Carletta is a character who only works part-time at the house. And that's why we don't see her in House of Dark Shadows. To be fair, I don't think she was actually a created character until this movie either. So there's that.
But the movie is very careful to tie itself in with the mythology of the first film.
Yep.
And so, given how intimate she is with this estate, it is kind of interesting that she wasn't around. I think Disney World was being opened around then, and I think maybe she was working at Frontierland, like on the ferry boat or Captain Nemo ride. And then she just said, "Oh, they're all dead. Come back." Like, what had she done to embarrass herself so horribly that they said, "We're going to have pseudo Mrs. Johnson take over a while."
You know what? She may have been originally living in that cottage that Carlin and Barrett's character might have been living in. Maybe that's where she was.
Jenkins.
Yeah, and maybe she's.
There you go.
She goes. Just because we don't see her in front of the camera doesn't mean she's not there. Maybe she's just around and she's just a character we don't see or meet.
Could she have been in Wincliffe?
Sleeping at all.
Huh?
Could she have been in Wincliffe?
Oh, we got a winner.
You could have been.
Ding, 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 ding. She's in Wincliffe.
Yeah, she could have been.
Where she gets confused for the woman who runs Wincliffe.
Right.
And they're all sorts of wacky mistaken identities, and that's how she got back out and took back over the house.
Yeah.
I heard that the doctor is like me here. Where is she? I've been trying to get an appointment with her for months. They keep me in the primal scream room. Can you tell?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too with this movie. The house is such a focal character, and it literally is a character. I love how when they're shooting the house, just because you're looking out the window, it doesn't always mean a person's looking out the window. It gives you that feeling that this house is literally alive. And I love what they're doing with that psychology. I sincerely
it's alive and it's unhappy.
Right, agreed. And I think in many ways, this movie is a nod to the original The Haunting in every way, for the most part.
Yeah.
But it also has a touch of witchcraft in it too, which I like too. They take Angelique and they make her a completely different character in the sense where she's married to Christopher Pennock's character. She's cheating on his character with Charles Collins, played by David Selby, and Quentin Collins not only resembles Charles because he's a Collins himself. It's because he's the reincarnation of Charles Collins, or so Carletta tells him. You have his memories. You have this, in which he doesn't experience until he gets to the house, which gives you the lore. The house is causing the memories to happen. More specifically, the tower room. But what do you think of that, Bobby?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like that, you feel the power of the house. You feel like even when there's like scenes with nothing there, like in the tower room, you feel that there's like a presence there. The house seems cold. It seems spooky, and it definitely feels like it's like you said, like you said in The Haunting. It feels like it's not just a specific spirit; it's the house itself. It's the force of evil,
and it gives like I have the same question for Patrick, but I want to make this point. When they go in the house, when they pull up and they go in, it does not feel like welcome home. It more feels like you're stuck here now. You're never leaving. And you sort of get that feeling when they walk into that house right away.
Yeah.
Patrick, what do you
it's like walking into a bedroom that, the day before was occupied by someone who's no longer around.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever done that, but I've done it a lot, usually with the homes of strangers. Just, no, I'm just kidding. But I have been in that position more than once, and there is a really eerie anti-energy. There's a very loud silence. In this movie, possesses a tremendously loud silence. And it does remind us that everybody here's dead. Yeah. Everybody who occupied this house is dead, or Joan Bennett. I think she survives, but she's someplace else. Yeah. So, that's if you carry continuity with you, that's really heavy. And the sour of this is that, you mentioned Angelique being a completely different character. Dan, you make it so hard to love you. Dan, I know I sound like Barbara Steele, but seriously, Dan, can you please give us something? You took away our Barnabas and put this psychotic goofball who gets, killed by Roger Davis, really? Killed by Roger Davis in his place. So all those kids who really got crazy about 1897, Barnabas is a hero, and Mom, it's my birthday. House of Dark Shadows is coming out. Let's go take the gang. And then Mother takes them, and they're horrified by what they see. And it's like, Mom, I swear he's a nice guy on the show. No, it's just God only knows. And then it's like, oh, look, Angelique's on the poster.
Yeah.
It's a good movie, but we shouldn't have to rationalize it. We should have a great Dark Shadows movie that really is a Dark Shadows movie without having to be rationalized. That's besides the point. You're talking about is the house, a looming presence and haunted, and does it haunt them and all of that, and it does.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's one of the best parts of this movie. Again, the acting is great. I'm not taking anything away from the actors and actresses, but the house, you often hear locations or characters themselves, and that's no more true than in this movie here. Lyndhurst is very much one of the best characters in this movie, and it just breathes a life of its own, quite literally. Now, what I do love,
the other.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, Jewel, you.
What I was gonna say,
your world, we just live in it.
No, not at all. What I really love too is how quickly David Selby sells the presence of Angelique. I know the writers wrote it, but Selby really he lives up to being the star of this movie in every way. Go ahead, Patrick. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, what a talent. I mean, both he and Kate Jackson.
Yep.
Just, for their first movie, for being kids, they just own this thing up one side and down the other. Jewel, what I was going to say, I have forgotten.
God
only knows.
Well, here's my question.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay. It's your world. We just live in it.
Oh my God.
Is it safe? Can I say my observation? You give me permission, Bobby.
Of course.
It's okay.
Oh God.
Okay, good.
Your world.
The other character visually in this movie is the weather. This is horrible, dreary, early October. This is the summer's hangover. And there's absolutely no pigment in the sky.
Yeah.
Except it's not pretty enough to be black and white. It is just, at first, it's like, oh, how romantic. It's kind of rainy when they arrive, just like all those funerals. And then I think we have to contend with the fact that the sun just about refuses to come out in this thing over and over again. And the weather is wonderfully, I say this as a compliment, is wonderfully oppressively bleak. It is the 70s that the movie Joker recreated really successfully. It's just this soggy. It's not passionate enough to be a storm, except for James Storm. It is just this wonderfully slightly damp, cold, uncomfortable weather. And for a house that is largely made of wood rather than stone, once you get inside, you can just feel it kind of swelling and creaking, and just the movie looks and feels like a massive hangover. And I think that's on purpose, because God knows Dan Curtis loved his filters. He could have put any filter on this he wanted to and make it look sunny and bright, but he didn't. And that is this is like coming out in 1971. This is welcome to 70s filmmaking, where every sky would look just like this. Yeah. But it has a wonderfully, it's like the music. It has this wonderfully sad effect that is beautiful. Like the tune Joanna is beautiful. But there's also just something kind of leaden about it after a while, where it just kind of sits there on top of you. And that, I think, works in tandem with the house, create just this atmosphere that's quietly oppressive. And when an atmosphere is quietly oppressive, it means it's coming from inside. And this is coming from inside Quentin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 1,000%.
It's so deep. It's like ingrained in every fiber of the house. Inside every brick, it's you feel it in there.
Yeah, 1,000%. And two, you're right. It's coming with inside Quentin, and that's something too that John Carlin's character alludes to, in a sense, where he's saying, at the end of the movie, he goes, I thought it was you who was causing all this. And he's sort of not wrong in a way. It somewhat is causing, because Carletta says to him, if you really believe what you're saying about you love Tracy, then just leave here and don't come back. And he doesn't. They stay there.
Yeah.
And though too, it's Angelique, but it's the house itself.
Yeah.
Because there's a great
Jewel.
Yeah.
I'm not interrupting you.
Oh, no. What I was going to say was there's a really great scene, again, because Laura Parker doesn't have a lot of lines in this, but there's a really great scene where when David Selby's character, Charles Collins, and Laura Parker's Angelique are kissing and they're making out and they're supposed to be making love. And right before that, she goes, finish it, Charles, bring the painting to life. And you don't see the painting. Now, you ain't going to see that painting to the end of the movie, where it's him carrying his dead wife's body to her, which is so like when you see that, it's like, oh Jesus Christ, you know what's gonna happen to poor Tracy. But before all that, you're like, okay, bring the painting to life. Like, what's she meaning? You don't get what she's meaning, and I love that they do that from a storytelling standpoint. And when you see Christopher Pennock's character, and they all come in, and then they hang Angelique. They go to hang Angelique, and she gives Carlette, the girl who's not Carletta, but who Carlette is reincarnated
Sarah.
from. Yeah, Sarah. That she gives her this little heart locket, and every time you see Carletta come near Quentin, she's touching that little locket, and it's so good. It's like criminally underrated by Grayson Hall. Sorry, go
ahead. What I was going to say was, how come you're so great? But also what I was going to say was, it's interesting about, the question of whether or not Quentin is, really in love with Tracy.
Yeah.
At any point in this movie, and he says so. He doesn't act like it. Yeah. And I think really only a dissatisfied spouse. I don't care how much possession is 9/10 of the law in this. It is an unsatisfied spouse who gets pulled into this, even subconsciously. And I'm reminded of a line early in the movie where Quentin talks about what he was like way back in the day, and he says, "Oh, you wouldn't have liked me then." Yeah. And I just now, when you were talking about that, I considered that this is a there is something deep in the past of this guy that makes him, because there are these quiet class differences that Quentin is of this social class, but he tries to deny it. And so, of course, Angelique is the appropriate receptacle for all of that. Claire and Alex very, quickly point out they're the hipsters who have nothing to do with this world. Yeah. Quentin very quickly says, "Oh, I can see you now, modern lady of the house in her modern blue jeans, making out invitations," thus suggesting that, he's saying, "Hey, look, you're not one of us." And then he says, "Well, yeah, I kind of was like this, but I'm not now," which automatically sets up the fact that he really is not of Tracy's world, and he's not of the audience's world. And that I love. I think that creates immediately a quiet friction that then plays out for the entire movie. That it's this war for Quentin that's won very easily. And I think maybe if Tracy had a little bit more, for whatever reason, a cult background or knowledge, or had an uncle, Professor Stokes, or somebody like that, who could come in and advise her, she would have been more of a force to be reckoned with. And the fact that the movie keeps going successfully without that is a great tribute to what an amazing star Kate Jackson is and was and would be.
Yeah. To more of a point, what you're saying too is when they show up, Quentin, sees Angelique Cannon from the tree, and Kate Jackson's character, "Oh, what do you see?" "Oh, nothing." It was nothing. It's like nothing. I didn't really see anything. It's like, wait a minute, you just lied. And this is before like the love scenes. Like he flashes back, like he's thinking about the love scenes, and he's even up in the tower. This is before he even sets his easel in the tower room, and it's like, you just told a bold lie, like a bold-faced lie to your wife, dog. It's like, things are off to a really great start.
Right, and you're saying he feels.
I've never been married, but I've heard.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bobby. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. It's because he feels like such a part of the house. It's so believable to see how he like was so immediately like possessed by it. Also, I have a question. Was this character did he grow up in Collinwood?
That's the thing.
That dialogue happens really fast. Joel, do you remember?
Here's the thing. I get the sense that he may have been he himself was not born in Collinwood, or he was at least not raised there, because the movie gets a sense when he comes back, when he returns, he goes, I can't believe this is all. He even says he can't believe that it's I think he's in a weird way, like how the Quentin from the series was descended from a separate part of the family. I think this Quentin is. I don't think he's from that. And again, I don't think they're necessarily taken from the series in a sense, but I think this Quentin too is from a different line of the family, because he doesn't appear to be. Yes, he knows about the house, but I think the whole family knows about how wealthy this family is up here, and he's the last one, so he comes to it's left to him in the will, so he comes to live there with his wife. That's the sense I get. I could be wrong.
No, that definitely makes sense, because that's what I was saying. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm looking at the script right now.
Oh,
so it's gonna be a minute.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Oh, because I was just thinking, because you like.
Yeah, Bobby, you go on.
No, the reason I was like thinking that is just like how accepting he is of like the first vision of like Angelique hanging from the tree. You know, maybe if he didn't like live like grow up there or hadn't been there, it's like he's almost nonchalant. Like he's definitely like interested and focused, but he's not surprised.
Yeah.
It's well, also if he's a reincarnation of Charles too, it's like part of him knows that this is happening.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's really beautifully played out in this movie. Like the slowly and slower, he's less becoming Quentin and more becoming Charles.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most beautiful psychological parts of this movie. It's the house. Yeah, it's Angelique. But David Selby and Kate Jackson just shine in this movie really well. Kate Jackson is more your protagonist you're rooting for to get the hell out of there. David Selby, you're rooting for, like, fight it, dude, fight. But it's like like he's fighting it less and less. Which you get the sense, okay.
This is taking a page.
Yeah.
This is taking a page from 1971 parallel time, 1970 parallel time, where Quentin's the bad guy. I mean, I think they have found that David Selby makes a very scary, abusive husband because he is so good looking and likable.
Yeah.
And you don't want it, and you keep denying it as it's going on, and that just makes it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, especially in this movie too. Like, it's like you're just like Kate Jackson's character Tracy. She tells John Carlin's character what happened when James Storm's character comes up to like hit him with the axe handle, and there's this fight between or whatever it is, a shovel or whatever he has in his hand. There, he comes up to hit him. And there's this big fight between James Storm's character and Quentin up in the tower room. And then they're like tumbling around down the steps. And here comes Kate Jackson's character, Tracy. She's pulling her husband, like, Quentin, what are you doing? And he's Charles at this point, and he's choking her. And then he comes out of it. He realizes, like, oh, what am I doing? How did I, like, that's where you see, like, the wheels are turning for sure by this point. And you have
honestly, as a,
what's that? I'm sorry.
I'm just reading my script. I'm just reading my script.
Oh,
you go on.
Sorry. And by this point, I love how James Storm, I mean, it's a great choreography between Storm and Selby. I love how Storm's on the ground laid out. He's selling the fight so well. And here's Carletta comes up, Mr. Collins. Like, what do you mean, Mr. Collins? Like, I love that little choreography there was so good. But the scene is very serious in nature because you have what you're seeing again is Quentin again is becoming Charles. He's slowly becoming Charles. And when they leave for New York, before they leave for New York, before John Carlin's character Nancy Barrett leave for New York, David Selby's character Quentin thanks Tracy for not telling Alex. Well, newsflash, she did. And he is everything. Yeah, I'll be fine. And she gets off the phone. He comes in the room, and you're not sure if he heard that call or not. You could think he did. And then he says to her, he goes, I'll come to bed later. And then what's he do? He messes around some more with the paintings. And again, the house and Angelique get to him, and one of the two most scariest scenes in this, other than the end, is when they're in the bedroom, when Quentin and Tracy are in the bedroom, and it's Charles Collins. It's a mixture between Charles and Quentin, and you're not really sure who it is.
Right?
He's like, "You're my wife," and he's like manhandling her. Like physically, like the choreography is great between the two of them. I give Kate Jackson and David Selby all the credit in the world, because again, that kind of choreography cannot be easy to do.
And they do it so naturally.
Yeah, like I could if I ever manhandled my wife that way, she'd divorce my ass. But the fact that they pull that off,
and the rest of you,
right. and the fact that they pull it off so well is cool. And the other scary part to me, one of the most is the pool scene where he's trying to drown.
Oh my God,
that scene, when I still watch it today, and I was watching this a couple of days ago with my daughter, and she's like, Dad, that guy's crazy. Like, yeah, he is. But it's just and I like how they got the pool all filled up, and like, because it's different than House. They really make every aspect of the whole estate a part of this movie. More so than House, and I know we've been talking about that, but I really enjoy that they make the most of the estate here in this movie.
They really do. I feel like, as a matter of fact, I saw House of Dark Shadows before I went to Lyndhurst for the Dark Shadows convention, but then I didn't see Night of Dark Shadows till afterwards. And I remember like the experience of watching House of Dark Shadows and going to Lyndhurst were like two separate things. Whereas like going to Lyndhurst and then seeing the Night of Dark Shadows, it really felt like you really felt the estate.
Yeah. Patrick, what did you think of the choreography in this movie, like the fight sequences and stuff?
It was fighty. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that line in Godfather 2, Mommy, Daddy's fighting again, about Sonny, because he always is. It was fine. It's Alex Stevens, so he knows his stuff. And God knows there's a lot of it. It's great, I think, because Stevens was good at crafting fights that looked like they were happening between people who didn't know how to fight.
Yeah.
And that's something I really appreciate. It's not a, throw the punch, it gets blocked, and then you come across with this fist kind of thing, which also would have been a lot of fun. But it has that same kind of sweaty, angry desperation that it has lots of stuff that the fight between Lamar Trask and Barnabas Collins has, after he shot Angelique, and they're both so neither of them have any experience fighting whatsoever, but they know that it's the kind of thing that they have to do, and it practically just degenerates into a slap fight because it's like, well, I guess this is what we do now. But it feels very realistic. It's like, these are a bunch of rich guys. They don't have to fight, and now they're doing it. Oh, this is just weird. And then there's the big bald guy. They got to bring a big bald guy in to kind of referee things. Remember him? Remember the big bald guy, Jewel? Or do you hate big bald guys? Is that what this is? Is this your platform for hate speech? Please respond. Oh, the big bald guy. They come in and Clinton's hanging out in the room. And it's like Thayer David's sort of unfinished clone assistant who hasn't had the hair glued on yet.
Well,
the one I'm talking about. Well, was that Ben Morgan? The suspiciously plump zombie from Dark Channel?
I'm not sure. It could have been.
Well,
I'll say that.
I'm going to find out.
Let's okay, you guys talk while I find out.
No, now, Jewel, I'm finding out, so you can talk. This is your show, Jewel. I'm just your stooge. I'm your lackey. I'm just here to laugh at your jokes. I'm the Ed McMahon. You don't get it? That's what I am.
Here's something I love too. I love that they really do a great job of how they use John Carlin and Nancy Barrett's characters. Their husband and wife, they go to New York, they come back. There's the portrait of Charles Collins, and we haven't seen what Charles actually looks like. How much of Quentin does he look like? And he looks exactly like him except for a small scar, which is really, really interesting. And I love how they use that in the frame of this movie, where by the end of the movie, he gets into one last fight with James Storm's character. By the way, one of the greatest car chase sequences is in this goddamn movie. Like, it is so awesome. It ranks up there with any action movie you'll see. And the fact that they do it so well. And then the fight sequence, like on the bridge, they're fighting, and then boom, you see the cut happen. It's like, oh no. You're thinking, oh, he's got the stitches. Oh, any more and it would have scarred. He removes the stitches. There's the scar. There's Charles Collins. There's Kate Jackson's Tracy. She comes in the house. She sees him standing there. There's Angelique coming around the corner, and it's like, oh, goodbye, Tracy. But I love how they really tie that all together by the end of the movie, and they do it in an excellent job. Kate Jackson's character goes through hell, no question.
Yeah.
But they both her and David do, if they're in the sound of my voice, amazing.
They're wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, they do an amazing job. What did you think?
So Jewel?
Yes.
Jewel, I hate to interrupt, but I've got important Ben Morgan news.
Go ahead.
Okay. Look, I'm trying to be serious. I'm trying to say something about Dark Shadows here and not, flatter the vanity of these people. I'm trying to talk about Ben Morgan, the suspiciously plump zombie. He's not listed as being in this.
Oh.
He is somehow listed as being in Female Mercenaries on Zombie Island, made in 1995. I don't know what he played in that. He's also in Johnny Shiloh, a TV movie. He was on 2 episodes of The Magical World of Disney, Johnny Shiloh Part 1 and Johnny Shiloh Part 2. He knows shit from Shiloh. Did I just say that? And he was on Public Prosecutor, a TV series in 1948. And now this is a movie I'm sure you've seen. It's Nothing Sacred. It's a wrestling movie made in 1937.
Ooh. Nice. Very, very nice.
Did you? He's born in 1914, and he's not in this movie. So I don't know why you keep insisting on bringing him up, Jewel. It's this thing about wrestling you have. I'm trying to praise David Selby and Kate Jackson. Here you are talking about a Rubenesque wrestler.
Oh,
Bobby, I'm sorry you had to be this.
I love it. I love it.
I do what I can with this man. I work myself to the bone. All I'll tell you about is Ben Morgan. Ben Morgan is buried in Chattanooga, and I keep threatening to go to his gravesite and do nothing horrible. I praise it. Maybe I'll go tomorrow. I'm on vacation.
Very, very nice. What did you think of the choreography in this movie, Bobby?
I thought it was wonderful. It felt very, like Patrick said, very natural, very, very real. And it like, as I was thinking, I couldn't help but compare it to House of Dark Shadows, where it's like more larger than life, whereas this felt very real. And I felt like the violence was like scarier actually in this.
Yeah.
Like when Quentin's trying to drown Kate Jackson. You really are.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. You really feel the force of his hand. You feel how she's in there. You feel how icky the water is.
Yeah.
Like it feels the violence feels very real.
Horrible shoot. God, what a terrible day or 2 days that must have been to shoot this thing.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks. We couldn't have had me die in the Bahamas.
I know the water looks disgusting, like.
Yeah.
Why can't they have a hot tub? And I get drowned in the nice crystal clear hot tub. Anyway.
Here's the thing too.
It's 1970.
There's a scene like where Kate Jackson and David Selby's character, they're sitting like on this block of cement down by the bridge near the water. I'm wondering if they had ever, no, I know they don't, but I'm wondering if they had thought about maybe shooting a beach scene between the two and then maybe him trying to drown her there. Now they don't, but I wonder if they at least thought about it, but instead they used the pool. I'm glad they used.
Well, it's easier with the pool.
Yeah, it is because
you've got water that goes like this at the beach. Yeah. I guess he could like push her off a rock and hold her down.
Yeah. I'm glad they used the pool because it fits in with the whole estate thing, the whole estate setting, which is really good.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the soundtrack of Night of Dark Shadows? Patrick?
Okay. I can approach this 2 different ways. In terms of serving the movie, it has exactly the kind of spare, abandoned, aping at romance that the characters are doing in the movie. Okay, we're moving into a great big house and it's going to be nice, but all we have is a piano and some tracks from the show, maybe, and those wacky drums. But it makes what we got in House of Dark Shadows feel like something done by the London Symphony Orchestra. And that, on one sense, if you don't know anything about the making of the movies, that really lends to its, sense of isolation and credibility and so on. At the same time, if you know anything about Dark Shadows and you know that basically, this was the cat taking the last few fumes of the dying corpse of Dark Shadows out, into the world. It's sad on a level I don't think they intended, because it feels like I've wandered into an airport lounge when they're trying to get everyone to leave.
Yeah.
And so the guy plays Joanna like 30 or 40 times in a row until the customers get the idea and go, because they want to close it up and clean up. And it's a pretty melody, but it's just, I remember when I first saw the movie, it was at a Dark Shadows convention in 1988, and I remember just immediately feeling depressed from the very first notes of it and from the very beginning. And on one hand, I think that's intentional, because in the 70s, depression was fun.
Yeah.
But in 1988 or 89, it was just depressing. So it's a mixed bag. I know that's not the I love it or I hate it that the internet's looking for. It's a little more nuanced, but that's what I got.
No, it's fine. I mean, look, I always love hearing honest opinions from you guys. You guys know that. Bobby, what did you think?
Wait, hold on. I'm reading a text from you now that says, Patrick, that's not my honest opinion. I hate what you just said. Light yourself on fire. Jewel, now, Bobby, again, I'm sorry you had to hear this. What do you have? Maybe you can salvage.
Well, it definitely has a different tone right away. It's because I mean the series and House of Dark Shadows right away they start with the ba 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 ba, and it really you get that spooky tone. Whereas this, it's much more. It feels much more real, like real people. It doesn't have like quite the fantasy world aspect of Dark Shadows tone.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's a more somber tone. I do really like when they start playing Shadows of the Night.
Yeah.
That's my favorite music part in it. Is because it really sells the possession story of the old music playing it. It's such a ghostly tune. So I really like how they did that.
The soundtrack. This is my favorite movie soundtrack of all three Dark Shadows movies. They nail this perfectly. It fits the mood. It fits the atmosphere. It fits the characters and the story they're trying to tell. Like you said, the possession. It's just so much. It's so great to hear a soundtrack that doesn't just like make you feel like, oh, it feels so a part of this movie, and it's great. Where I like House's soundtrack too, but House is like so like flamboyant. Like you said, this feels more like real life. It feels like these are real people, though they're not. It gives that sort of real life feeling, and you appreciate it for it.
Yeah, and I love the music they use for the flashback sequences.
Yeah.
Because it really feels like it doesn't exactly feel like a dream. It feels like something that has happened here before, that is like still happening, just like on another plane.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you guys think of Laura Parker's performance in this, Patrick?
It's good. I wish there were more of it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's wasted in this movie. Having said that, it is a tribute to her acting that without lines, she is, and I don't mean like an outline around her, like on the Charlie's Angels, but without lines, without spoken lines, except for like one, she is an incredible presence that you just remember that drives the movie. And so, that's a good thing. However, Jewel, I'm going to tell you, I think that is rationalizing on our part, and we're trying to rationalize around the fact that she was underused, very underused in this movie. And I don't know why, because Sam is very good at writing strong women.
Yeah.
So I feel like gosh, I like this movie. Nevertheless, it feels like a Quentin movie that can't quite decide to be a Quentin movie. And it feels like an Angelique movie that can't quite bring itself to be an Angelique movie. And I think to love something, you also have to be fair. And I think that is a fair assessment here. And by bringing up Laura Parker, the best I could, God knows, I am really reminded of, honestly, the lack of Laura Parker, and that this really could have and should have been a star-making turn for her, and it wasn't, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, Bobby, what do you think, man?
Sorry.
No. No, it's definitely interesting that they didn't build her up, especially not having the Barnabas Collins character. You would think that they would want, like, that was another one of their strong characters of the show. Was Angelique. You would think that they would want to bolster it up, but I mean, even though she doesn't have much to do, she makes the most of every time she's on screen, and she has. I really like how it's like
absolutely,
and she has a very ethereal quality in the movie, with the way she moves and the way her movement and her eyes. Like, there's definitely, I mean, there's things that we're not getting. I mean, I always think it's a bummer that we don't get the Angelique laugh in this, but it's just the way she moves it's so ghost-like and ethereal. She does a great job with what she has.
Yeah, like when she's out stretching her arms like this to like David, it makes you feel like you're Charles / Quentin at that point. When I do this first person view, it's like it feels like you're being pulled in. And I think that's very smart, not only camera work, but the way they shot that and the way Laura Parker Laura Parker doesn't have many lines, but what they sell most is her body and a crazy. It's like they're selling this beautiful woman and how seductive she is. And they do it in such short a time. And it makes sense. And then, oh, you're a witch. And it's like, oh crap, they're gonna hang her. And they're going to make you watch. And then they do it. And then I love how they do all the past scenes where, Sarah is Quentin sees Sarah out the window screaming. I think that's one of the best effects in the movie. It's not the best, but it's one of them. Because there's so many cool ones in this movie. And I love the fact that I know Laura doesn't have a lot of lines in this movie, and she herself isn't in the movie a lot in the sense, but her presence is in this movie full front. And I'm going to get straight to hell saying this. Less is more. I know, they might have not used her fully the way they should have, but her being in this movie less, it makes her presence all the more important, if that makes sense. Because you feel like the house is haunted, right? The house is our main presence, our main character in a sense. But Laura's character, Laura Parker's Angelique, is a part of the house forever.
Yeah.
And you feel it.
It's interesting. It's you're right on point, because I didn't realize just how little she's on screen until you guys said something. Because she's so memorable in it.
Yeah, she's not. Patrick's right. She's not on screen a lot. She isn't, and that is don't get me wrong. That is a shame. It's not I'd rather see somebody who's so talented in front of the camera and who deserves to be in front of the camera. But I think with this movie, the way the psychology is laid out so well, I think that's the most interesting thing. Like, if we ever get Dan's actual full-on cut of this movie, is Angelique in this movie more? I think that would be really interesting. But if for now what we have is a movie that has less Angelique, but it doesn't take away the fact that her character's presence is throughout this movie, especially throughout that house and throughout the grounds. I love how Alex sees her, John Carlin's character, where he's riding his bike, and he sees her walking, and it's like every time I see that, I get chills up my goddamn spine. It's so criminally good.
Yeah.
But what's you guys' favorite scene in this movie, Bobby?
Let's see. There's so many good ones. I love. I love the whole when Carlotta Drake is describing the flashback of when she was a little girl and the day that they take Angelique away.
Yeah,
I love that, and I love how they do it visually with Sarah Castle underneath the table, and just the Grayson's tone of voice too. It's wonderful.
Yeah, Patrick, what's your favorite scene, man?
It's interesting. My favorite scene in this movie is it's not one that you would expect. And it's not a scary scene or anything like that. It's watching the casual 70s hip dinner acting when you have the first scene with Claire and Alex. And that just seeing these actors who played so many outlandish parts, especially Carlin, get to play what we call a normative character and yet pull it off. And just that we see this basis of friendship that ends up piloting a lot of the rest of the movie, because we have to believe in that to believe in the rest of the film. I really like that. And as much of a weird dark horse as that is, that's my favorite. That certainly is the most memorable scene. And oddly enough, it's my favorite. I know that's a weird one, but yeah.
My favorite scene, it's not as a really scary scene. It's the drive up to the house, because in House of Dark Shadows we don't get a drive up to the location. In Night we do. We get the sense of we're going there, and I love that aspect. The fact, one of my favorite video games that got turned into a movie, Silent Hill, you get that aspect when Rose takes her adopted daughter to Silent Hill. You go on that journey. And I love the fact that you go on that journey here by being driven up to the house by Quentin and Tracy. It's really, really a cool scene.
I love how the homage Rebecca too, how when it starts to rain.
Yeah. It's Night of Dark Shadows is full of cool scenery scenes, and it's like the glass house is like the glass coming down on Carlin's character.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
And I love that.
Well, it's a statement of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's a very biblical image. Don't throw stones.
Yeah. I love the fact too we get some horseback.
I don't really know what she's being a hypocrite about. I'm sure it works somewhere.
I love the fact
what happened. We
get horseback riding in this movie from David Selby and Kate.
There is a horse ride.
Yeah.
There is a horse ride in the movie. Honestly, horses are a big part of this. They are such a symbol of aristocracy, and he gets the horse riding in the movie, which I don't think is an accident. And that a horse tramples Strack to death. Yeah. So that horse motif is I wish honestly they had done even more with, but I think it's a canny observation. It is a very equestrian movie, and let's face it. I mean, horses are these things that the rich people deal with that should by all means scare the hell out of them. Christopher Reeve died because of one of them. Yeah. He bought too much horse than he could handle.
Yeah. I have two more questions for you guys. The first one is, Patrick, what did you think of Thayer David's performance as Strick in this?
He is he's sort of wandering around wondering where Jerry Lacey is. And, I mean, because this is really the Jerry Lacey part.
Yeah.
To the extent that they get sort of an anagram of the name Strack. He's Thayer David. He's going to be great. He is imposing. He is fussy. He is both a figure of law and order, and yet ultimately sort of fat and ineffectual, which is that, sets Quentin off as a unique figure really well. So, I mean, yeah, it's there. There's no bad Thayer David.
No. Bobby, what did you think of Thayer David's Strike?
Oh, I agree. I mean, like, yeah, it's supposed to be the Jerry Lacey role, but Thayer David, he's great in everything, and he's such a hallmark of Dark Shadows too. Playing so many different roles on the show. I even though it feels like it should be a Jerry Lacey role, I feel like you need Thayer David in it.
Yeah, I like the fact.
I think I'm not saying a word. Julie, you go.
I like the fact that Thayer David's character looks at Dana Malay's character, who's laughing during the sermon when they're reading the Angelique, taking her into the mausoleum. I love how he just does that subtle look over and continues this sermon. Like he's almost telling her to shut up without telling her to shut up.
Yeah.
It's such a cool move by Thayer David.
Yeah.
It's like, this dude is just cool as shit. It's
right. Yeah. Oh, well,
to me.
What's that?
I'm not saying a word.
Oh, sorry.
Patrick, I want to know what you're thinking. Please tell us.
Well, I have a really tough time with conversation sometimes because I never quite know when to interject. My thought is that Thayer David is so good. It, to me, evidences what may have been a talk around the water cooler of when they were, casting the role of Trask and so on. It's like, gosh darn it, why don't we have two Thayer Davids? Yeah. We used them on Ben, so we can't have him also play this. But the time came and they were able to get this done. That was my thought.
Yeah.
I'm sticking to it.
Because he's like perfect in this role.
Yeah.
Hmm?
And I agree. I love what a talented actor. Like you were saying that, like just the look he gives Diana Maley. It's the perfect look. It's that perfect touch.
Yeah. My final question to you guys is: Dan Curtis has directed a good bit of movies. If you had to pick your top 3 Dan Curtis movies, where does Night of Dark Shadows rank?
I guess it's below Burnt Offerings. It's below. Are we counting Winds of War?
Well, I guess you could.
I mean, I need to know because that affects how I answer the question.
Well, let's just go. Let's just go horror movies.
Horror movies. Okay. Well, I think he learned a lot doing this movie, and I think the Trilogy of Terror is probably a better movie. Honestly, I hope that doesn't make me a bad Dark Shadows fan. I'm sure other things do, but not that. I think Burnt Offerings is better. I mean, you got Oliver Reed, who's one of the greatest actors of his generation. Going mano a mano with Betty Davis. So it's really tough because really what we're talking about are the Dark Shadows movies, and we're kind of obligated to like those. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a patriotic duty for us who wear the uniform of the Fightin' 1225. So I know this is not the sort of the concise, neat, wrapped up in a bow answer I could give. Honestly, I think it's probably, of the Dan Curtis movies I've seen, it's probably the least impressive. House of Dark Shadows has Barnabas, and it has all of that mythology. It has all of that. I don't even like that movie very much, but it has so much going on in it. Attention must be paid. Burnt Offerings, you got Oliver Reed, you got the Zuni doll, and more James Storm in Trilogy of Terror. I haven't seen the rest. Intruders, who cares? So Norless Tapes, I don't know. So really, when you sort of put all that, did he direct The Night Stalker? I don't think so. I don't think he directed that, did he? He just sort of produced it.
Yeah, he just produced. Yeah.
He just produced.
Did he? I think he directed the second one. The Night Strangler.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Night Strangler I would put up there then. This just suffers only by comparison. Maybe. But this suffers only by comparison to other more mature works. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It doesn't mean I don't like it. It doesn't mean I want my address given out and, daybooks returned or something like that. It's just, yeah, that's in answer to your question.
Bobby, where do you rank Night of Dark Shadows, man?
Let me check. All right. So now that I said that, I'm not sure about the Night Strangler or not. I don't. It's hard for me because I watched it twice in preparation for this, and I watched it once on its own, and then once with the original script, so I would know like the deleted scenes and everything. And I don't know. It's just like, I feel if it had the deleted scenes in, my ranking would be higher.
Yeah.
Because
oh yeah.
Yeah. So like that one, that one is just a hard one for me to judge. Like, because I do like House of Dark Shadows. I rank it more. It has Barnabas and everything like that, but also the story is more cohesive, and it's with Burnt Offerings. It's more of the full theme, and then the Night Stalker and it was other in the Dracula movie he did. It's more cohesive. So it ranks a little bit on the lower side, but I mean if the miracle happens and like the missing footage ever does go in, then I feel like my scale would be like reevaluated because it has like a lot of great things going for it.
We're really close to that day coming to pass. I mean, we are really, really close to it. I mean, I think everything's been recorded, in fact. So it's just some weird bit of Hollywood bureaucracy is, the thing that's kind of holding it up.
Before I give my list, Bobby, you were right. He did. I looked it up. He does direct The Night Strangler.
Yes.
So Bobby got that one right. I'll say this. This movie, I think this movie really helped out Burnt Offerings. Burnt Offerings is a better movie than this.
Yeah.
But I think this movie, Dan's early movies, I think really helped him as a director. And even directing like only 20 episodes of Dark Shadows helped him because he did direct, before directing DS, he had directed Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as well. I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm with the both of you. It's not going to be, I don't think it'll, if you're doing Dan's work, honestly, I don't think it's going to be in anyone's top 3, but it's definitely a movie you have to mention because of how really great the setting is and how great the scenery is. So mine would be Burnt Offerings, number 1. I'm with you. The Night Strangler is number 2. No, if I had to pick number 3, it would be the Trilogy of Terror. I mean, because simply it's that good. But right outside that would, as much as I again, House is the more talked about movie, but if I had to pick a 4th, mine would be Night, simply because of.
I think that's very reasonable, Jewel. I think that's very reasonable.
Because we've been talking about how the house is such a character in this movie. And I think just that fact alone, along with how they shoot this, is just, it gives you that creepy feeling. Again, I'm with you, Bobby and Patrick, that when we get the full version of this movie finally one day, hopefully, I think it'll be even more appreciated. I have nothing more to add about this movie. Do you guys?
I do want to say
No,
just how
I think it's a great movie. Yeah. It's an art film. It's the Dark Shadows art movie.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's amazing how visual Dan Curtis is as a director and how fast he learned.
Yeah.
Because you could see how he learned from making House of Dark Shadows, and he put it he improved on aspects of the visual storytelling on Night of Dark Shadows. It's and then Burnt Offerings, you see the improvement of how he's just how much he learns.
Yeah, Burnt Offerings is such a great movie.
Yeah.
I mean, way better than The Shining. I don't give a shit when anyone says. I will burn straight to hell for that one. I'm gonna go meet the devil tonight. Anyway,
can I make a quick announcement?
Sure, man.
So everyone knows.
Yes.
Because I have the original the old script for Night of Dark Shadows. So me, Catherine, and Rachel, we're going to be doing some of the deleted scenes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
man.
for the YouTube and TikTok channel. Yeah.
Guys, I wish I lived near you.
That's
you guys
really
are
cool,
great.
man.
I would be your Lucy. I would be all over that.
Oh, thank you so much. We'd love to have you.
Cool.
I would love to be had.
Cool. That's really cool, man. I can't wait to see those and share those. That is really awesome, Bobby.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Links to Bobby the Lugosi Theater for the YouTube channel. Links to where you can get the Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound is going to be in the description box. First of all, gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight. This was a fun discussion to have for a really, really fun movie to watch, especially in October, because it is the spooky season and we all are Dark Shadows. So,
yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Patrick, I'll see you tomorrow night, dude.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
See you, Bobby.
Bobby, have a great night.
You too.
You guys have a great night.
Bye now.